I'm here until 6:30. Yeah, 6:30. Yeah, yeah, no worries, no worries. Just come and tap me on the shoulder. It's this woman, I'm trying to read the notes. She's talked for 10 minutes and all she's doing is marketing her consultant.
Yep.
How can we build an enabling environment for health innovations to thrive?
Since Dr. Stella mentioned yes, I will mention more yes. There are many factors that actually influence sustainability of anything in the digital space. I've been in the digital space for quite some time. My first exposure with ideal and it was asking of user and it was schools. Then later they added 1.2 this case and then 1.4. And the first time we were introduced
Audio, audio,
there
audio,
was a lot of
audio,
excitement. I still remember we had 10 participants.
audio, audio.
And virus existed then. And a change happening challenge me, but I think that there are certain facts that we have to unearth and bring out. So when you look at it, the biggest challenge to me in Uganda, or probably the whole of East Africa, is the finance. Okay, the financing is the biggest challenge. I was reading last night about the banking findings for the year 2024. I was super surprised to see Citibank, which none of you have an account, I'm sure. They are in existence in Uganda. Okay? And these guys, they are the most profitable bank in the entire country. And the realization, the per capita contribution to their turnover is 1,338 million shillings per employee. 1,338 million per employee. Ask me how many employees they have. The second runner, surprising, is Bank of Baroda. Surprisingly, and if you have an account with Baroda, I'm a fan of Baroda Financial Society. But you know, for some obvious reasons, like when you just have a beautiful or you are entitled to live with that person for the rest of your life. So it's like that, as marriage with Bank of Baroda. Sometimes you walk inside the Bank of Baroda, there will be like 5 tills. Only one fellow will be there. Only one, I don't know exactly. I'm a fan of Baroda Bank. And then 5 tills will be there. Only one teller. And one manager. 2 people behind the scene. What is their contribution? 838 million shillings per person. Okay? The first is Diamond Trust Bank. I'm giving you that because you can't do it because they are learning. So Diamond Trust Bank, their expenditure against, or in other words, expenditure they throw money on infrastructure. They give you the air conditioners, they want to smile, they want to handshake you, want to open the car door, another one to close outside the end, so 85% of their revenue managing this luxury. What am I trying to say is that we have very less access to because most of these commercial banks, you name any commercial bank in Uganda's financial sector, whether it's equity bank, they are from India. KCB, they are from India. Bank of Baroda, they are from India. They are remote control. When you talk about the Diamond Trust Fund, they are remote control from Nairobi. You name most of this. There is a generic Ugandan bank. That is the central bank. But they are a prison wardens of trillions of money. You don't ask for finances, they will ask you for collateral. So where is the risk that they take? There is no risk taking in the banking sector. So let me give you the 4 A's. I thought about this. First A is adaptability. For you to sustain in this kind of space. Whether it is your thing, or my thing, or I think, you name it. The first thing is adaptability. The first A is adaptability. What does that mean? How relevant are you to the local country? Now let me ask you one question. And be honest and don't answer it to yourself. How many of you today, or how many of us today are going to download this application and book a doctor and the consult from tomorrow? I'm sure the percentage will be disastrous. Am I really adaptability? We are here for the launch, but are we really appreciating that? Can Dr. Stella tomorrow call someone from your clinic and say, I have a terrible headache. Can you suggest or prescribe a Panadol? But I think you are prescribing for your headache. So what do you want? Hey, adaptability. How do you adapt your product to the local market is a very, very important thing. The second from the fact in fact, there are so many small one-roomers, one-room e-commerce company. They took over everybody. And they closed at one. In this company, and good enough, they also had suffered some of the bruises in junior school. Well, we'll talk about that. So the second A that I'm talking about is what? Accessibility. The first is adaptability. So the A is adaptability is very important. The third A is affordability. Okay? How affordable is our application, or how affordable is it? I know for sure because I have been a beneficiary of Rocket Health. I think they have done a tremendous job during COVID. In fact, they came to limelight during COVID time. Rocket Health did an amazing job. I mean, I'm not saying that you go and sit to them and copy everything, control C, control V. Just try to metamorphose it because I'm sure you can do some innovation at a different scale. So the third A that we're talking about is what? Affordability. And then the final A is, did I say accessibility? What else did we say? Let me refer to my notes. Then available. Okay, available. You should be available. You put up the platform tomorrow, someone calls, hey, me, I have fallen down, I was riding a water. There is no one to speak. The platform is there, there is no support. There is no one to call. You call the landline. It's going on and on. Somebody is somebody my hand is bruised and the blood is oozing off. Let me call Yoki. Nobody is there. And for some of the 4A's the standing pillars for any successful digital space business. Personally, I'm into the IT business since I was the first marketing manager for a company called A and C Solutions, Boca Research. BOCA, one Google and C. Boca Research is one of the prime companies that goes into IT network services and IT products. So my skills with IT world have been, I have lived through the era. So understand the 4 A's. These are the strongest pillars for infrastructure. Recently, I launched a product that was last year. It's called Meet.ug. You go and search, or you can just download an Android application. It's called BLEDP.ug. Now, this product was a great innovation in Uganda. Now, I had access to some funds, my own funds. Okay, it was less than about $150,000. And I didn't want to spend that money. So I said, now, if I touch this money, I go bankrupt. Because that was the money that was meant for some business innovation. Okay, and with the government of Uganda for this place now. Okay, and we are trying to come up with a lot of innovation, but I don't want to eat up the time of the other analysts. This is a network, authority of leading. I was invited by the ED. We went there and presented it. They immediately talk about the product. Ready made money. So, again, the 4 A's. Adaptability, accessibility, availability, and affordability. Don't put in the order, whatever order you want, but see that the 4 is there. Okay? If you can't manage those 4, don't even exist in the digital space. Be effective, but don't be affiliated. Thank you.
Thank you. Looking over the 4 days, are we keeping up? Yes. amazing. Okay. So we will move on to Dr. David Jolie. The question that I will pose to you is that social enterprises in healthcare, they often struggle in making an impact and get profits. In what ways can social enterprises balance impact?
Now I'm having an issue. You see, I'm supposed to
Thank
change
you so
the
much.
from
Very good
legacy to digital.
But before that, I just want to the person choosing is the local who I have. I will work on that. It's a call for me to update my online profile. I'm now working at the intersection of academia and industry to turn ideas into reality. And at CIU, we are launching this will be a world-changing platform where people turn ideas into reality. And for this particular conversation, and yes, I have a startup that has a product that will accelerate the organization of malaria. So, just a backstory about myself. I'm the youngest person here, but I think I know a lot in terms of digital health, and that's where I want to start from. In 2018, I was in medical school, and I was a Nicholas. For most people, when they enter medical school, they are told themselves. But I was lost, so I went to the experience that I know, and that is books. I started reading a lot of books from history, economics, and this particular book opened my eyes to what I should do in my life. There is a lecture by Rivaldo in 2018 that he gave at Google, and he talks about his book, Sapiens, and talks about how humanity has developed, and talks about the future, and later I read all his books, and I saw what I should do in my life. From these books, we see that there has been a trend in how humanity has developed. And in summary, that the people who have used the cutting-edge tools have created the world. Right now, we're speaking English because the English created the world that we live in right now. And if you go back probably 400 years ago, you will see that they were using different languages, maybe 500 also. So, in terms of, in line with the question that I'm going to answer, I will not use 4 letters or 5 letters. As a Gen Z, I will use a mnemonic. And the mnemonic is me, M-E-M. And the first M will stand for me. I want to start with a quote from Nelson Mandela. If Nelson Mandela wrote about work in this way, he said, work is not merely a means to earn a living. It is a way to give purpose. It is a way to give purpose to existence, to uplift others, to participate in the long journey of human dignity. In learning, in working, we become. I want to start with the part of meaning, because when people ask a question like impact versus profit, it seems like you have to take one and leave the other. But that's not the case. From a point of doing what has value, then we do not have to debate whether we are doing impactful work or whether we are making a profit. Because meaningful work definitely creates impact and eventually, take note, eventually, time, there is time there. And I want to emphasize time because my peers, the Gen Z, we don't have a very good grasp of time. But eventually, meaningful work makes money, makes a lot of money, eventually. And I think that is where we should start from if we want to balance impact and profit. Are we together? So I want to start from there, from meaningful work. I could go over and over again in terms of meaningful work because personally, with my medicine journey,
I have seen that, I think anyone in healthcare knows that at the center of everything we do is meaning. And so even in digital innovation, if the tools we are creating, if the companies we are building come from a standpoint of profit alone, then we are not going to go far. If they come from a standpoint of impact alone, like most people in the NGO world look at things, then we are still not going to go far. That's why I think meaning is at the center of balancing those two. I could share my personal story, but I will not. I will go to the next part of the meme. We're together. The next part of the meme is the E, which is economics. Do we have any economists in the room? Okay, that is dangerous. But it is economics. So I learned that economics is very important for meaningful work when I was reading about still the people who have created the world that we live in right now. If we do not understand economics, then we are not going to create things that can make money. And at the same time, we shall not make things that create impact. Earlier on, I was sharing with Doctor when he talked about the private sector being at the forefront. I was sharing with him the story of the men who built America, and all of them were people from the private sector, but more so they were the people at the center of the economy of America. So to discuss digital technology without discussing economics, it's very difficult. So the second thing that we have to understand is economics. This week I've been reading about the 2008 financial collapse that started in the US with the housing bubble. And there's a lot of things that I've learned and that feed back into how I think, which ideas to work on, how to launch our products, and how to go ahead. I don't think that anyone can build a company that will last 30 years without factoring in the economics. Dr. Singh has shared something very, very crucial. He had an idea. He knew that it would make money. He had money that he was not willing to lose. And he went ahead and found people who had money that they were willing to lose. What Dr. Singh did is exactly what Elon Musk has done. Elon Musk, one of his biggest talents is not innovation. It is selling things that are risky to people that are willing to take the risk. For over a decade, he sold SpaceX and Tesla without any product. And that is why we need to understand economics. One thing that I have learned recently is that in the world right now, there is more credit than real money. So if you're an innovator chasing money versus an innovator that is chasing credit, just like Dr. Singh, you will not go so far. That's why economics is at the center of impact and profit. And why you need to know economics is the things like inflation. If you don't understand inflation, you will have positive figures on your balance sheets, but you won't be making profit in the end if you don't factor in those things. And maybe you don't need to go down to those things, but at the least, I will speak in Gen Z language, have a finance guy, Obed, and listen to your finance guy. And then the third thing is market. Market. When we are creating digital tools, when we are innovating things, we're doing them for people, for institutions, for companies, for families. And so they are not an island. They are fitting into a system, into lives of people, into industries that have already been operating. And that is why we need to think about the market. Not just thinking about the market in terms of pitching and telling people that, oh, I have this digital tool and there is a market size of 5 million people, there are 8 industries, we can tap into the 40 million Ugandans and all that. It is looking at how you are actually going to sell to these people. One of the most successful companies of our times is Apple. And they are successful because they understood the market. They understood that selling is as equally important as making something useful. Vitendo, your clinic is an important tool. It is a useful tool. Right now in the room, they have close to 50 clients. I don't know how many of those people they have sold to. And as an innovator, that has to be at the back of your mind everywhere. As in a meeting somewhere and people are asking what I do, and literally my job can be described as selling. I am convincing people to buy our ideas. I'm convincing people to take up our tools. And why you have to understand the market? It's because when you're an innovator, sometimes you're seeing 50 years ahead, but you're existing right now. I was in medical school. I read all these things about what AI is going to do. It was 2019, none of my lecturers was listening about AI. I was doing these courses, I was learning Python, learning deep learning, and all those things, but there's no market for that then. And that taught me something, that when you're thinking about the market, you have to think about the first people that can buy, and then the people that will buy in the future. Our digital tool for malaria, the first market that we're looking at was clinics, people in the hospitals. And then I traveled to the US and attended this conference, and then something clicked that actually the first people that can buy our tool are pharmaceutical companies. And so right now, our tool is being made for people who are in the anti-malarial drug business. And those are the first people that can buy and cause money to come inside, and then we can go ahead and cause the impact that made us start this work, which is eradicate malaria. Okay, you can now clap. All right, so there's a lot I could talk about the market, but the other example is, because I'm not very successful, you guys will not take my example so seriously. But the other example is SpaceX, one of the most successful companies. It has been mentioned here. What they are doing is they want to take people to Mars, but there are few people who can pay to go to Mars. So what are they selling right now? Internet. So you have to understand the market, your future market, your current market, who you want to sell to, and you have to sell and sell and sell. If I was part of the Vitendo team, I would have 4 people or 5 people in the conference, getting people's phones, downloading the app, telling them to try it out, telling them to send it to their WhatsApp contacts. There's an initiative I have that is an impact-driven initiative. It's called Major. We are doing a docu-series of people doing incredible work across Africa. And we held our first fireside chat. It has grown in just 1 month. The docu-series has been watched over 10,000 times. And we had this fireside chat, and everyone who attended had to subscribe to our YouTube. They had to post on their status. That is how you sell, very, very aggressively. So market is a very key thing. And with that, I just want to close with systems. The first book I read this year is called Thinking in Systems by Donella Meadows. And I'll just put a footnote there that if you want to be in the innovation world, you have to learn how to read and scour a lot of knowledge. But in terms of systems thinking, there's something that is key that I got, and that is metrics, what we measure. I've been asked about impact and profit. Those are metrics. And systems are optimized for the metrics that we measure. If you are measuring profit, your system will get optimized for profit. And when it gets optimized for profit, most times there is an opportunity cost. That is economics now, but there is something else that will not be optimized for, and sometimes that's impact. That's why it is very key for us to pay attention to the metrics we measure. Sometimes consciously, sometimes unconsciously. But the metrics we measure are very, very key. In the NGO world, they measure a lot of impact. And how they measure that impact? Do we have any people in the NGO world here? Oh, awesome. They'll talk more. But how impact is measured in the NGO world is a little different from how it's measured in the private sector. One of the people that we featured in our docu-series started one of the largest pharmaceutical companies in Uganda, Guardian Health, and he mentioned something in terms of how him leaving public health to go and start a pharmaceutical company was actually contributing to public health. And he said that we created a system that is bringing drugs and medicines that are of quality to people, a supply chain, and to him that is impact. People from the NGO world sometimes may not, you will have to over-convince them that this is impactful for me to take a $1 million and put into a pharmaceutical company that is totally private. And that goes back to where she mentioned where the money is coming from. Bill Gates, one of the biggest spenders on health on the continent, and most of his money goes to governments and NGOs. And it's essentially, I think, because of how they measure their impact. But this is something for us to think about. Which people are creating more impact in Africa? Is it governments and NGOs or the private sector? Who is building Africa? Thank you.
Wow, that was amazing. Thank you so much, Dr. Jolie. So you came with the acronym MEM, M-E-M. Who can tell us what it stands for? Yes, meaning economics, market. Amazing. You guys have been...
I think I'm now a teacher also.
Yes, you qualify. I've been taking my notes. That was just so much wisdom and so many gems. Thank you so much. I hope you've also been taking your notes and having your questions. Soon we'll be opening the floor up for questions, but before we do, we have a couple more questions for our panelists to answer. So, Edwin, Mr. Molwa, grateful to have you on the panel. So Dr. Jolie did touch a bit on the role that governments and NGOs can play in health innovation. And so just building on that point, as you are from the NGO world, what roles, from your point of view, do you see that the governments play in supporting innovations?
Interesting. Thank you for that question. And I'm happy to be in a very rich and diverse panel. Dr. Singh, let me start with thanking you for taking us down that memory lane for us who lived through that age of the computer metamorphosis. I'm hoping one day we can meet at old timers and listen to old school music and talk about those good old days, right? And I must say that in Kenya, we appreciate the Gen Zs. They are the guys who are driving change in our country. So David, we appreciate you. I think that's very brilliant. You're a brilliant young man. And I'm happy that you're in this panel to give your insights. Very, very, very brilliant. As far as government is concerned, and I think I'll be preaching to the choir when I'm saying this, first and foremost, the government has to create an enabling environment for innovators or innovations to thrive. If you don't have an environment that allows you to thrive, then you might come up with very brilliant solutions, but if you don't have the right policies in place, if you don't have environment that allows investors put in their money, your innovations might not really go anywhere. So that enabling environment is important. I think three other key things I can talk about is the government should also co-invest in these innovations. Co-investing is not just about money. They need to put in the money, homegrown solutions funded by government, but also investing in the right infrastructure that can make innovations thrive. You need to have robust internet, you need to have network coverage, you need to have stable electricity, or if you don't have that, allow companies that are bringing in solar solutions to actually do good business. So that is part of co-investing. Co-investing in these innovations, either directly or indirectly, tying back again to enabling environment. The other thing is governments integrating proven solutions into, in this case, the health system. If you are working with government, if you are building solutions to solve problems at scale and in the public, typically you'll work with government. And the reason why people go to governments is most people will go to public health hospitals, not private health hospitals. But I'll assure you that even as an irrigation village, which we have strong proponents of the public sector playing a key role in supporting governments to ensure that the health sector is actually strong and the solutions are sustainable. We even released a position paper on that. But if you have a proven solution, then integrating that in routine healthcare service delivery allows that solution to thrive. So that's where government comes in. Let them integrate proven solutions into routine healthcare service delivery. Your innovation will be able to thrive. The last point I can talk about is coordinating and consolidating the innovations that are available in the space and the players who are responsible for these innovations. Players include the innovators, we have the public sector, we have the donors. There is a lot of duplication that is happening in our countries that is driven by different interests. The government has a key role to play to ensure that these different players are coordinated and regulated to reduce on the duplication. You find instances where I approach the government, I have an idea, they know other players who are doing something similar in the market, they won't talk about it, and then you realize that you are fighting for space. And then people are using resources that are really going to waste because of duplication. If the government plays a more central role in coordinating these investments, I think the government of Rwanda has done this very well. If you approach them with an innovation, they'll tell you, we have this and this player in the market who's already doing something similar. Why don't you work with them to see whether you can improve what's already existing, as opposed to duplicating. Now, the amount of the resources you're bringing in will then be used to build on something that's already existing, as opposed to doing something that's duplicative. And therefore, you are reducing on wastage. So I think those are the 4 points I could say about how government can support innovation.
You want to add?
I want to add something. In terms of government, when I was setting out my innovation journey, I never thought about government as part of our market. But I think as innovators, we have to look at government as our biggest buyer. And I don't know any one of you has heard of Larry Ellison or Oracle. Yeah, if you use social media, anything on the internet really, you are using tech from them. And their first big buyer was the FBI. They created this database for the government. And I just, ever since I started thinking about that, I went to the Ministry of Health and I was looking for what program of theirs can buy our tool. And I found out that government actually runs the biggest surveillance program in the country that is the best place to pilot our tool. So I think as innovators, if we are looking to balance profit and impact, looking at government as a buyer is very, very key, because when you go to government, for example, to pilot our tool, it's a little more flexible to pilot it with the government laboratories versus the pharmaceutical company. So I think what he has said is very key. I don't know if we shall get your clinic to get some government clients, but I think it's very, very good.
Thank you so much for, for that insight into how the government plays a role as well. And thank you, Dr. Jolie, for your thoughts as well. We had wanted to open the floor up to the audience, but I've been told we're very time bad at the moment. So I think if you can collect your thoughts, collect your questions, there'll definitely be time to interact with the panelists. And there may be time towards the end as well to just add your thoughts. Just before we wrap up the panel, do we have any closing remarks from you, our panelists?
Maybe I will start and then can go this way. I strongly believe the last proposition our panelist mentioned, that's the government support. I strongly believe that. You know, to entice the government, you'll have to have something extraordinary, something that they are scratching with. You know, there must be a pain point. So discover the pain points of the government services. And once you get into that, I mean, that space, sky is the limit. I'll give you an example. Of course, the BLEEP, the project that I mentioned about, that we launched last year in September, it attracted a lot of attention. And specifically by Honorable Asuman Basalirwa, because this is an application against counterfeit, a fight against counterfeit in Uganda. And it initially sparked because UNBS sent out a report that 58% of goods that we consume as Ugandans, it's 58, I mean, it's all fake, bichupuli. Whether it is the women, you think that you are doing lotion, it's fake. The lipstick, it is fake. So sometimes the women, they put lipstick and then the lips become twice as the size as your original size of your lip. Because it's fake. So the eyeliner, mascara, whatever. So when we looked at that, we found that there is a need. So what you need to do, the biggest mistake most of the innovators do is front to the government and say, we have an idea, we will go. Do it first, demonstrate it. So this is exactly what we did, and Honorable Asuman Basalirwa, when he looked at it, he said, we already have a bill in the parliament. You know what? We launched it with the Right Honorable Speaker, because it's going to be a law, anti-counterfeit law in Uganda. Now you already have a product. So now URA is now, I mean, even now before I came here, I got a mail from UNBS. They're saying, please, because we had a round of talk, and they're saying, please, give us a schedule, we need to talk more. You get the point? Now that is a pain point. So UNBS are now on board, PPD is on board, URA is on board, NDA is on board, UBRB is on board. You start the product, and what we do is, we went around Uganda, about 26 districts, and we enticed people, and they said, like, you know, you download the app, you continue to post. So someone posted, we bought something called Bukola, but that Bukola is not an original product, but it is a fake product. My cow died. So they took a picture of the cow that was dead, and they posted on it. It created a lot of noise in the Ministry of Agriculture, until they had to call and say, please, can you pull it down? He said, no, it is an open platform. It's like X. Anyone can post. If you want, if it is scratching, if that report is scratching you, you better take action. So now people are now, hey, this is becoming a big thing. So now the government agencies are coming on board. Now we are trying to innovate the platform. Another thing is, you remember the Umeme takeover by UEDCL. We found that there was a beautiful spot there. What we did, we already had an online recruitment system. And the whole exercise last year, in the month of December, January, February, it was in our system. Okay, it was a system developed by my company. And the whole migration from Umeme to UEDSL was done on my platform. Okay? So, you need to understand and watch the space. Read the newspaper. Just, don't say, this one ran with another one. This one, no. You discard all those news and then read only the business news. Where you can open, there is some, some program in NTV, Aganta, whatever. This one took the other's property, this wife ran with the other one. This one was taking a bath and they took pictures, all those things. King David was looking at Bathsheba, all those pictures. We don't need all those things. If you are an innovator, look into the business space. So, in fact, I'll give you one clue. Recently, it was on the headlines that when URA was migrating to the new number plates, the digital number plates. You remember that? There was a big hue and cry in the parliament. How are we going to collect the EPS, express penalty tickets, penalty by the Uganda police? So immediately we wrote a letter. We said, now, at that point, we have to be very, very careful. Don't tell them that you are going to have a project. Just write, we have a solution for this. When can we have a demonstration? Work day and night. Throughout the night, never sleep. Make your team, give them coffee, give them cocoa, give them hot water, everything, and then you make them work. Have a solution, at least the MVP, a minimum viable product. Take it and then to show them. You see now, you don't have to worry about
collecting the EPS, just migrate this one. They say, okay, how much do you want? You charge them $500,000. Now, since that is a pain point for government, $500,000 is nothing for them. Thank you very much.
Dr. Singh.
Wow, fantastic. Dr. Singh, the program we think is called Agataliko Fufu.
That one.
Have I got it
tried
right?
to rehearse it several times, but it is going off my lips.
I think that's where they get the Lugambo from. Am I doing
Exactly.
well in Luganda? Oh, awesome. Awesome. I'll just piggyback where Doctor left off. I think for me, the future of healthcare is going to be very multi-sectoral, multidisciplinary, and so let's start thinking about ecosystem. Start asking yourself, where, as an innovator, where do you sit in the ecosystem? And remember when I started, I said, what's the real problem? Last month I was in Nigeria, and the conversations that we are having with the Ministry of Health, their actual need today is actually power and connectivity, because it's the biggest barrier to accessing all these technologies that we are launching. So what are they doing? They're launching a dialogue between the power and the health sector, because the health sector is actually the biggest consumers of power. So let's start thinking about, in terms of looking at impact, what he talked about is how do we now say that if we can improve the megawatts or improve this in terms of power and connectivity, what's the translation in health outcomes? That is a need, an actual need. So data platforms become an actual need. And remember, it's very multi-sectoral. So you have all these people coming into space. You have the energy sector. You understand that not everybody is on the grid, so renewable energy is a conversation. Climate and health is a conversation. All these sectors are coming together. Telco is coming on board. Why are they coming on board? To subsidize internet for healthcare. The other thing is that cold chain, now that governments have to become self-reliant, cold chain maintaining 2 degrees to 8 degrees, you actually curtail the whole immunization program if you don't have the infrastructure. So conversations are around how can telcos use their mass to power fridges in the nearest healthcare sector. So when it comes to innovation, it's really around not only the technology bit of it, but holistic integrated solutions. The other thing is that we've moved beyond disease-specific solutions, right? Everybody is thinking about if it has worked for HIV, malaria, and TB, it has to work for non-communicable diseases. It has to work for neglected tropical diseases. It has to work for maternal and child health as well. So when you think about it, you think about it holistically. But this is what I see as an Afro-optimist, that this is the best time to be in digital health. You know why? Because as governments have been forced to become self-reliant, the conversations they are having with any potential private foundation, which happen to be the payers of all these programs, Edwin will tell you that USAID cuts affected them, but they were just a portion of their funding because they have private organizations that are funding them. They are more now interested, the conversation about private foundations, which are payers of all this scale, they're interested about how can we adopt local solutions to be able to propagate and scale healthcare. In South Africa next month, you have a supply chain conference, and it is sector agnostic. How is it that we can move goods from one place to another? How can we use the same infrastructure for healthcare? So it's also multi-sectoral, it's very multidisciplinary, it's very ecosystem. So this is what I see as a parting shot. For a very long time, we have learned from Silicon Valley. It's time for Silicon Valley to learn from Silicon Savannah when it comes to healthcare. Through us, thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much. I think these are very great parting shots. I'm going to have 3 parting shots, and one is for the, I'm sure I'm speaking to the converted. The conversations here have been very good. I have worked in the government space, I've worked in the NGO space, and I've attended digital health conferences from both sides. This is my first private sector digital health conference. And I should say, the conversation here is very up there. So well done to the organizers and everyone that has participated. My parting shots are that we have to learn from history and we have to work for the future. We are at the turning points in humanity with AI, biotechnology, big data, and all those things. And we have the internet era to learn from. We have the industrial revolution to learn from. Not just the good things, the bad things too. And as Africa, we, as she has very well shared, I think we are at the best point because we are literally very, very fertile to grow. We are developing literally. And we have a lot of room for growth. So one of my key things is for us to learn from history while creating for the future. One key thing that we could look at is what were the 10 most successful companies from the internet era? Anyone knows them from Africa? If you check out, you'll see that the most successful internet companies are all telecom companies. There are people not selling products on the internet, but people who are selling the internet. So there's something to learn from there. There's a lot for us to learn from history. There's a lot that happened to Africa because of where we were in the Industrial Revolution that we should learn from so that we do differently. And then the second thing, which I think is very key, that Dr. Singh mentioned, and also that every other panelist has mentioned, is execution. Execution, execution. We have to reduce the time between ideation and getting the first user, and moving from the first user to the 10th user and to the 100th user. It's because by the time when people are using things, when we execute, when we make things exist, that's the only way that they can improve. That's the only way that they can scale. That's the only way that we can get governments to use them. That's the only way that we can sell them to Silicon Valley, to the UK and everywhere else. And with that, I want to say that we have to also look at the world as the world and not as Kampala or as Uganda or as East Africa. Our market is the world. Because of the digitization, we can tap into the billionaires in Florida and sell to them products from Kampala. And that is the kind of thinking we have to have for us to create the future. And with that, I want to finish by saying, at CIU, we are creating a platform that is going to revolutionize how digital health products, health innovations, and any other thing to do with innovation is coming into the industry. We are working to make sure that people who come in with ideas move out with products to shorten the execution time and make it possible for people to sell across the world. This is me selling if I have the product, but that's how we sell. Thank you.
So yeah, I'm going to be very quick with my closing points, but I'm quick to respond. Yes, we're a global village, but let's also sell to the African billionaires. Because now we need homegrown financing as well. Okay? So, two things, very quick. We are moving towards responsive primary healthcare systems. That's where we are going. Responsive primary healthcare systems have three key things. They are available, like we've been said earlier, especially when and when they are needed. You should be able to access the healthcare system at 2 a.m. if you need to do that from the comfort of your home. They need to be able to adapt to shocks and stresses. Right now, there are too many shocks and stresses, pandemics, climate change events, etc. They need to be responsive to the needs and preferences of the people seeking services. Digital tools are key enablers to build responsive primary healthcare systems. And for us at Village Reach, that is the core of our business when working with governments and private sector, building responsive primary healthcare systems that bring health to the people where they are. The other thing I need to mention is this: for health innovations, for them to be adapted and for them to be sustainable, they need to be trusted. They need to be relevant, and contextually relevant, and then they also need to be aligned to the needs of the community. So engaging the community when you are developing innovations is very key to ensure that they can be adapted and they can be sustained. Because when the community feels that they own this, they are part of owning these innovations, because they contributed to the development of these innovations, you can be sure the adaptation, from the first user to the millionth user, and sustaining that beyond even financing, engaging the community in developing these innovations is very key. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue. It's been an honor to be seated amongst such wise people. I've learned so much just sitting here listening to you. And yeah, it's clear that advancing and success in sustainability within digital health is not just about funding or money. There are so many principles there that underpin what it means to be successful within that sector. So thank you all for your contributions, our distinguished panelists, and on behalf of the panel, thank you for your attention. I think just before we go, there'll be time for one photo opportunity as a panel before we move on. Thank you.
Thank you. I think as a panel that had Genesis, we should have a selfie.
Dr. Jelly seems to be fighting the battle with the big man, our grandfather, who keeps looking down on the Gen Zs. So as the panel takes their photo, I'm going to request the Mobi Clinic team to come close. I'm also going to request Dr. Yakub to prepare. All right, thank you very much. That panel was very vibrant. It had a lot of Gen Z language, Gen Z energy. I hope they've infected you with some of their energy, with some of their good vibes. And I hope each one of us right now is going to take a selfie before we go back. All right, I'm going to hand over the microphone to the Mobi Clinic team. They have a very brief exercise that they're going to do, after which we're going to have a presentation of a research abstract from Dr. Yakub Hashim. Yes. All right.
Thank you, everyone. We're trying to wrap up before the top of the hour. And once again, let's clap for the previous panel. It's been very insightful. And we are so glad. There's a lot of brain power in here. And we're extremely excited that the quality of our speakers has not disappointed. Everyone is giving very amazing feedback about you all. Yeah. Just before we run into this small segment, we would like to announce earlier before lunch, people voted. Madame Natasha moderated the debate that was on AI, and people voted. There was Team A, Team B, and looks like Team B1 took the day. Maybe Natasha, you can. I'm sorry, I'm colorblind. Natasha, I'm sorry, I am colorblind, it seems. This is Team A that won. Oh my god. Oh. Okay, Team A was on what? Team A were for the motion. Oh, that was the team for Paul Krug. Awesome. A big hand clap for Team A. I'm sorry, I had announced the wrong results. It happens in Africa sometimes. I'm sorry. Alright. It's a yourself space. All right. So at this moment in time, we'd like to just take a couple of minutes from the Mobi Clinic team to say thank you to our board members who have been guiding us. And yeah, very quickly, I will request them to make way to the front. And as the next panelist gets ready, the next presentation is about just 10 minutes, 5 minutes presentation, 5 minutes questions. And then we'll have our final panel, which is the tech panel. And before 5, we should really be done. So we'll still keep time. Yeah. Madame Bright, you're very welcome. She's our board chairperson. Please, you're welcome to the front.
Photo moment.
So at Mobi Clinic, we are presenting very quickly service awards to our board members, and this is to Madame Bright Asimwe. It's the same wording for the rest, in recognition of your visionary and impactful service as a board chairperson of Mobi Clinic Uganda. Thank you so much.
As they are done, Mr. Paul Crow, please get in front.
Thank you so much, Paul.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Crispin Ndeda. Doctor. Sorry. Can we have someone to represent Madame Harima? Someone to represent Madame Harima? Harima Komuhanji? Thank you. Photo moment. Yeah.
All right, so at this point in time, very quickly, we are going to have our abstract presenter who's doing a 10-minute abstract presentation, and thereafter we shall have our final panel of the day, which is a technology panel, and we are very excited listening to the people that are talking about how we can use technology much more. Please stay around, and let's have a great evening as we close. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. Good evening. Good afternoon. Good evening. I will be presenting the slides. I wouldn't want to focus mainly because I know it is the time is not of our. But so I'm going to talk about the role of wearables and fitness apps in fighting non-communicable diseases. I don't have an acronym, but I will mention a story. So there was a certain lady in US who broke up with her boyfriend. So why did she break up with her boyfriend? The reason is that at night she received an Apple Watch notification because she connected hers with her boyfriend that at 4 a.m. he was having increased heart rate. Yes. So the heart rate was high. So the Apple Watch was like, what is wrong? Maybe it's health-wise. He comes back at home, he was drunk. And then she concluded that he was cheating. So that tells you about the power of data, health data, wearables. That is Fitbit. The same thing about Fitbit. they have stopped giving the American soldiers to put on Fitbit. Do you know why? Because you could track the location of the base, army base, just by the Fitbit alone, looking at their movement. And I think it's crucial for us to appreciate the importance of health data, both privacy, both usability, but as well as the impact, the social impact it can have on all of us. My name is Dr. Yakub. I'm a doctor, health psychologist, digital health expert. Currently at Futurent Living, we are doing something amazing in the world of health coaching, promoting health and wellness. I was a bit disappointed not to see it in the Mobi clinic, your clinic, the aspect of wellness. We're doing hopefully some good work with the Clark University when it comes especially the elderly side, elderly care, but as well as with the insurance sector when it comes to corporate wellness. In Africa, we have, especially in Uganda, we have NCDs. NCDs are real. Currently in Uganda, the figures show 80% of Ugandans with diabetes and hypertension are not aware of it. So people are living with these conditions, people are having walking diagnoses, people are just collapsing and then passing away from these conditions, whether it's hypertension, whether it is DM, but even the cancers. And the value of us trying to utilize these health apps and wearables cannot be underestimated because we are all carrying phones in our pockets. The phone is always collecting the data. Next slide. Okay, next slide. Yeah, I think I've talked about the value of the NCDs, the NCD epidemic. Not just the diseases, but even the risk factors. We have metabolic syndrome. A research came out last month, or is it the other month, which showed, well, I don't know, it might not be politically correct, but it stated that half of women within Kampala are overweight or obese within Kampala metropolitan. So that tells you we have a big issue when it comes to these risk factors. Do you know Uganda is the only country in Africa which is the only country not in Europe which is top 10 alcohol drinking countries in the world? That's also another fact. Yes, that's another fact. So let's talk about risk factors. Continue. So this research was more of a systemic review, which on the research papers which has been published internationally, databases on the value of, now when we look at wearables and fitness, specifically when it comes to assessing physical activity, diet adherence, glucose monitoring, and cardiovascular health. Okay, we can continue. And what it showed, out of those 45 studies, which had more than 30,000 participants, that by just someone using the watch or even the mobile app, the physical activity increased. This is a phenomenon which is called the Pygmalion phenomenon. The Pygmalion phenomenon, I think, is from a business side, but it shows when you are looking at your staff, when you are at the shop, they will work better, they will be more productive, they will also steal less. That shows you just the fact that someone has the phone and they know that you are monitoring, they are actually active, they are more active. Just because of that fear of being monitored. Same thing with drug adherence. Of course, that will lead to the reduction of the BMI and even glucose activity, glucose control with the diabetics for that matter, and even early detection of cardiovascular risk, which is the beauty of this. And the way this technology is exponentially improving, I think now the recent or the latest smart Samsung watch is going to come with glucometer. You can just imagine how amazing that will be. I've been able to walk with your glucometer. There's already a CTM device which you can attach to your hand and which can collect your continuous glucose monitoring. Because the matter of fact is this business of going to hospital once a year and taking your measurement is pretty much useless. Because number one, we already have what we call the white coat hypertension, the fact that you're with a doctor, we cannot, it's already spoiled, but also you need that continuous monitoring, because to change lifestyle, you need to be able to see now even the kind of food we're eating, which kind of food leads to raise of glucose, which kind of food, because the matter of fact is medicine is going to move from this sort of a reactive medicine to what we call precision medicine. And precision medicine has to be catered to everyone. Personal, I think they were the 4 Ps. I don't know if they have heard about the 4 Ps. It has to be preventive, it has to be personalized, it has to be predictive, which is now AI, and then it has to be participatory, because the users should be the drivers of their own health, not just the culture of Musao, where the doctor is, or the healthcare worker is the big man, sort of like a small god, and then the patient is just there begging down, please help me. Which is even, I think, where Dr. David likes history, and even think the word patient comes from what? The patience. You have to be patient, yes, that's your role. Okay, continue. So this was just showing that, this is an old figure, but it shows 80% still the same, do not even know that they have the conditions. That's why tomorrow they will just come to Uganda Heart Institute, they will come to the cancer, they will come to emergency after they have had their HHS or their hypertensive emergency or their congestive heart failure, etc. Unfortunately. And even out of those 20% who know, only 5% are on control. Yeah, it's a dire situation, I think, to say the least. Okay, continue. So the results, the main findings I will just mention is the higher user dropout rates. So that one is to do also with how, just because of that anxiety, especially without the support of healthcare workers, the clients I've worked with as even health coaching, a lot of them either drop out in 3 months because, number one, the community, the ecosystem does not support their lifestyle change. If you have been, okay, let me use the drinking. If you have been drinking for the last 40, 50 years, what lifestyle would you have which does not involve drinking? You know how hard it is for someone to create a new lifestyle when all they knew was that lifestyle. They had that community, they had the friends, they had the family events, they had the gatherings. All those things they are going to lose by changing. So there's a high level of dropout, unfortunately. Of course, data privacy, I've already talked about what can happen to the data. Now, what I have not mentioned is that company of Fitbit is currently owned by who? By Google. So Google bought Fitbit. So yeah, only God knows how Google is going to use that data. Whether tomorrow you just find, because there was a story of how I think Facebook was able to send a man to buy diapers. So they sent him an ad to buy diapers. Now he was wondering, why is it sending me this diapers ad? But actually Facebook figured out that his daughter was pregnant even before she knew. Yeah, so madness. Yeah, so limited resources. Of course, you have been hearing about the infrastructure challenges. Okay, finally, I think one last slide. Okay, conclusion, yes, we need to support self-monitoring and behavioral change, self-care. As we lose these fundings, as we lose the USAID, the ETC, here in Uganda, Africa, the only saving grace we have is primary healthcare. We cannot really rely much on secondary, to say the least on tertiary healthcare, because however much there is a lot of noise that we can build hospitals, specialized government hospitals, but still, the only thing which you can help people with is when it comes to self-care. Yeah, when you prevent your health, when you manage your health, you are saving yourself. The expenses, the chaos, the exploitation, and which is another interesting point, because the average people who go to health centers for chronic diseases, either after they go there, they drop out, or they don't even go there and they start with where? Traditional medicine, herbal medicine. In fact, that's the biggest competitor to what we call even healthcare or private healthcare. Traditional medicine is not only surviving, but it is what? Thriving, it's growing. People are getting, so there's exploitation, there's side effects, there's just all the bad things. Of course, this will help us to effectively monitor, prevent NCDs and manage them. And then lastly, remote monitoring and early intervention. So even the aspect of remote monitoring is very crucial. Okay, finally. Okay, so I've already talked about mainly these things. What about AI? This aspect of health data or big data, the reason why it's called big data is because it's so huge and it's collecting, imagine if it's collecting your heart rate every second. That data is too much for human medical professional to read. And that's why you need the AI, for that matter, to help you to analyze that big data and it gives you the AI at the end of the day is a tool, and it's the most powerful tool. Well, and a confession I'm making is that I'm not the one who even did systemic review, because mainly I used the AI to help me with doing it. And that's the fact. You don't have time to go through, because some of the researches can be in depth. And you just have to accept the fact. So lastly, I wanted to mention this quote. William Gibson says, "The future is already here, it is just not evenly distributed." Yeah. Thank you. Any questions?
Dr. Yakub, thank you very much for that presentation. Indeed, it was brief but very elaborate. The key points were raised, and I believe our audience has learned something from your research. Do we have any questions for the doctor? Is that an assumption that everything has been understood, or nothing has been understood at all? No questions? I think Dr. Crispin wants to ask a question. All right, so Dr. Yakub, you'll note down the questions, you'll answer them at once.
I don't know it's really relevant, but it's related, that's what I can say. I wanted to say, okay, wearables are good, but are they not radiations or something? And have you thought about what their effects are?
Thank you for that question. I noticed some people nodding. Do we have supplementation on the question or any other question? Okay.
The quoted wearables are a high cost. Can we come down to a cost-effective way of being able to monitor?
Okay, those are two questions so far. Any other question? Yes.
And one of the other things, Jakub, that you and I spoke of is there doesn't seem to be any research on cost-benefit analysis. By having an $80 watch, I can save myself the cost of a funeral for 10 years.
Okay. All right, and I'll just add one more question to that.
Okay.
Apart from the parameters of blood pressure and heart rate, are there any other wearables that monitor other vitals, apart from temperature, blood pressure, and heart rate? And in this regard, I'm asking on behalf of someone who is diabetic, not necessarily hypertensive, how would they benefit from the wearables?
Okay, all right, thank you. So I think perhaps I will start chronologically. Dr. Cyprian?
Dr. Crispin.
Yeah, I think that ship has sunk. I think we are just exposed to electromagnetic waves. I don't know whether anywhere we are, so it's a tricky question, but maybe with research, I'm not necessarily the best person because I might not be specialist in that electromagnetic or electrical engineering, but perhaps there could be something dangerous. But at the end of the day, we are all cyborgs now because we are carrying our phones, so we might as well be half machine. Okay, for Mr. Paul, the first point, which is the cost-benefit analysis, I think that was there, or being effective. I think you have a point, but the good thing with even the smartphones, which these days you can get even cheap, Chinese-made, a lot of them actually have that ability for accelerometer, to count steps, but maybe, of course, the more advanced phones you can get. But also, the other issue is locally made, maybe smartwatches, which is maybe something for question. Why do we have to rely on Samsung or Apple to create for us watch? Can't we do it here with the Ministry of STI? Yeah, perhaps. The aspect of life and the cost benefit is interesting because it's the work I'm currently doing with the insurance industry and the Insurance Regulatory Authority. Actually, if you can measure the value of self-care and self-monitoring, not only can you improve health insurance, but you can even improve life insurance, because that is the parameters they use to calculate the life insurance. So if you can do it, and even that's what we are going to do, and we should sell to organizations, we're going to sell to organizations to get their stuff, because insurance Does anyone know the percentage of Ugandans which are insured? Maybe. It's less than that. It is 0.0. It's less than 1%, yeah. Because it's number one, it's expensive because they cannot calculate the risk. There's a lot of fraud, etc. So by able to monitor this data, big data, they can know who is doing what, they can behaviorally engage, they can prescribe, they can manage better. And I think that will be my answers. Thank you.
Dr. Yakub, thank you for your presentation. And clearly, everyone has learnt one or two things. Those who previously didn't know about the percentage of Ugandans that are insured have learned, and those who didn't know how the wearables work have also learned. And it was very, very eye-opening, some of the statistics that you displayed here, especially in terms of non-communicable diseases and how fast they are spreading. As they set up the stage, just something small on non-communicable diseases, perhaps why Paul Crook was very passionate about certain things, not eating certain things and advocating for eating others, is because these days there's been a shift in causes of death, top 10 causes of death worldwide. Back in the day, it was infectious diseases, malaria, typhoid, tuberculosis. These were the causes of death globally. Then we had antibiotics being invented, vaccines. These days, infectious diseases are not killing people. But you'll be shocked to learn that 7 out of the top 10 causes of death currently, globally, are non-communicable diseases and complications that arise from these non-communicable diseases. And sometimes they are called lifestyle diseases because they are largely influenced by our lifestyle. So I hope at the end of the day, we've not only learned digital health, but we've also learned a thing or two about non-communicable diseases and how we can improve our lifestyles to fight these diseases. Our next panel is going to involve a lot of tech terms, and it's going to contain a lot of tech-savvy people. And it's going to be moderated by none other than Mr. Arafat Magezi. Mr. Arafat is the Chief Tech Officer at Mobi Clinic. So I would like us to welcome him to the stage, and then he will invite his panelists, and they'll lead us through the last event of the day. Just a quick reminder, there's a QR code that's been created where you can access all the photos that have been taken today. So just scan that code, you'll get a link to access all the photos.
Thank you so much. As how events go, the VIPs talk last. So we are the VIPs. I would like to take this opportunity. My name is Magezi Arafat. I'm the CTO, Mobi Clinic, and I'm also a software engineer. I have built resilient systems for government, for private companies, and also individuals. So my panel is Tech, it's Innovation and Emerging Technologies. My first panelist is Mr. Edson Kagona. He's an AI innovator, he's an educator, an entrepreneur leader in digital transformation. Edson is really heavy. Edson is a trailblazing expert at the nexus of artificial intelligence, software engineering, and education, with over a decade of diverse experience. Edson is dedicated to harnessing AI and digital technologies to revolutionize quality education, foster innovation, and also address system challenges in Africa. He's also a senior tech lead at a Silicon Valley company called Turing. He's also a manager at a Center of Innovation and Entrepreneurship at Cavendish University. Thank you for coming, Edson. My next panelist, who has flown all the way from Japan today, and he came straight away to talk to us, is other than Dr. Hiromi Yakura. He is a postdoctoral researcher in the Centers for Human and Machines and Max Institute for Human Development. He holds a PhD in computer science and machine learning. His research is mostly machine learning, computer interaction, which involves various application domains such as creativity support, human resource management, but he's also a software engineer. You're welcome, Doctor. One more panelist who's going to be joining us later on, Mr. Michael Niyitegeka. Mr. Michael is the program director at Refactory at Clark International University. Michael is also the ICDO Africa country manager for Uganda. He's really passionate and practices leadership development, business technology strategy, business advisory, and he also holds an MBA from a Sunny Business School and is a Franklin Covey certified facilitator. He will be joining in a minute. I also have remote speakers, being that it's a tech panel, we blended in physical and remote. Director, leader, and scientist. But my channel newborn and sense currently PhD in nursing philosophy and health inspiring. His work has been mostly in Kenya and in the international conference. Thank you so much. So and I have a conversation with my tech partner. When the president comes around, I'm sure they'll try to take pictures. So the first question will go to Mr. Edson. Edson, nice to meet you. You serve as the manager at the Center for Innovation at University. How VIDIHSA and the community including invention solutions. Thank you. Thank you so much, brother, for the panel. The listeners, mentioned, the moderator forgot to mention that free is the most high. So if you want to get a lot of money, you need to do a lot of work as a developer to be it's the best thing in the world. I can challenge you. Yes, I work with community trust in Uganda as a manager of the Center for Innovation. And enterprise, we do a lot of amazing work. And I look at when it comes to software development in universities, we stand for one. You can go to any university and they'll tell you that they can solve that. So our mindset check that what we talk to students and put their lecturers. And we get to realize the ideas that these people have after we change their mindset. And they are doing that properly. We are intentional about combining technologies. We train on how to use AI and train on how to use AI research in teaching and learning, how to teach students, and how to ask the right questions. Basically, how to use AI and the tools of AI, and it's doing a very good job because there was a lot of tension, and even with the mentors or lecturers, they didn't know how they use AI, so we did a good job there. And we're also intentional about we are training simulation to provide simulation here. We did a lot of virtual reality, extended reality. So we're utilizing these because amazing tools that
Very simple. You're going to lose the job. And I think also will take the job. That's something that is going to happen with AI. AI may not replace the job. If you and the discussions will have you can take your job because AI is basically to improve your cognitive abilities. It's about doing stuff.
Teaching or tutoring manufacturing. So in this purpose, I think AI can be utilized from tomorrow or from next year in human safety. But at the same time, training or medical education is not so profitable market. So we need to make how to support this kind of technology application.
Thank you, Doctor. Yes, AI is the future. Despite I think we've seen one, but we are not going to move from AI using AI into the future. Thank you so much. The factory has played a key role in skilling young people. Young people for refactoring. So being here with Michael gives me pleasure that he's on my panel and I am his product. The factory has played a key role in skilling young people for the technology industry in Uganda. Can you share how this approach is contributing to innovation, both in terms of the kinds of solutions being built and the mindset shift it's creating among emerging technology? Of course, one of the answers would be me, because I take medicine, but go beyond that. I'm joking. Thank you, Michael.
I thought you could actually answer that question without me. It's gratifying that your product is out there and is speaking for itself without me having to belabor that point. First of all, I want to apologize for jumping off the earlier panel. But when you are in this business and you're eating, there are certain things that you need to take certain decisions. So yes, I had a call that had moved from 2:30 to 3:30, and I just couldn't push that call any further. Otherwise, yeah, reputation also goes down in terms of it. So apologies for that. So the reason we started Refactory was the realization that industry and academia were miles apart. That's number one. Number two was that majority of the people that do deliver and train at universities or in mainstream academia, especially in the tech space, majority of them have not had significant practice. And so I can't teach you how to write code when I have not been part of an enterprise development capability. Thank you very much. So I taught at Marquette for 12 years. And one of the things I noted there was that there was a lot of content that was being transferred and people were being examined, but there was limited emphasis on what does the industry want. And I can tell you, when I left Marquette in 2013 and started this journey of refactoring, industry told us 70% of what you're teaching your students at university, we actually don't need it now. You probably may not need it because the technology is changing extremely fast. What we're looking for is an attitude. Can you learn? Do you have the foundations? And can I build on those foundations? Why? Because a lot of the things that you're trying to teach and ensure that people pass, you're teaching it in a semester. But I'm going to build it over a number of years. That was number one. Number two was that software development is about 70% problem identification and 30% writing code. I can say that again. Software development is about 70% problem identification and 30% writing code. And here's why. That when you have understood the problem, your user of technology doesn't care what system you're using or what language you're using unless they are building onto a legacy system.
that you can choose to use WordPress because you understand the person wants a website and is not really keen on technology. So you start with JavaScript, web, that's really care. What do they want? A website. But is that the industry is looking for people that understand the language and practice. Let me explain this. We get quite a lot of students who have done 4 years of software engineering. A lot of the papers they have done is agile. And I tell you, I teach also. Students who come and tell me and say, you know, I did agile methodology. This is my transcript. I even have an A. But I didn't understand the designers. Our script is, I'm going to deliver work in bucket of work. And these are the pages of it. That is on the transcript. We also have seen students who have come to us and they don't have a portfolio. When they are hiring us, the government wants to look at the transcript. Nobody. Why? Because I can tell you the same who will train, close to 60% don't have an IT degree. Personally, I also don't have an IT degree, I have no IT qualification. But I'm taking respect for what we do. We find our pathway, the focus is skill to work. Give examples, because your competence will speak for you. And I've struggled to change even the mindset from where we deliver. It's projected out of the box. So what do we do? Teach and it knows how to teach.
I was working at the blockchain application marketplace. A blockchain marketplace. It was
it's not just an academic project, it's an industry project. We've done work for InterSwitch, we've done work for Bank of Uganda, we've done work for a number of the fintech firms. And guess what? For every project we've delivered, the company has paid a minimum amount. So we bring industry, we create an incentive for industry to come to us. And guess what? Industry is also willing to pay. Last year we piloted programs that industry can pay for us to do this. We had about 5 companies that pay. So we created a revenue stream that companies are going to pay. Why? Because we give them a product. It's not just for people. Now, for me, I don't think I have cracked it yet. It's still a lot we can do. It is still a lot of work to be done. And let me speak to AI and I will conclude. Also say this. Will computer science take accountants' jobs? No. The accountant that will lose a job is a data entry. That's the accountant who's going to lose a job. The accountant who has gone to a level of SCCA and is able to do financial analysis will still, because see, AI depends on historical data. AI depends on historical data. So you also need to the extent that because the models actually depend on the data and use that data to predict and show what is likely. I don't know if that makes sense. Where we are in Africa, a lot of our data is still fragmented. And that is a piece of work that we need to cover. For us to get to a level where we have a level predictive analysis, we need to show that as many of our processes are digitized. And once you've started digitizing a picture, the data cleaning, the data can now be analyzed, and then you can now start the visualization, and then go to the higher level of applying the science around it, then to machine learning, then to artificial intelligence. I just wanted to help put that context, because there are times when I attend meetings like this, and we speak about that is true. We are using this for it to transition from being just a technology about I'll tell you, I also know very many young people who still within the finance of machine learning and AI, and most of them will be hired here and not working remote. Why? Because the ecosystem is not fully utilized. Finally, we need to invest in infrastructure. Once you start doing large language models, your ordinary laptop is a child. Even the best laptop. Doctor here will tell you we need significant what we call compute power. Because your processing another that currently happening some of the departments that are saying we need compute if we're going to train young people to be able to build language models that understand standards. Let me give that as an example. Because Uganda is a country in the US.
Thank you so much, Mr. Michael. Moving on to my points, I would like to pose a question for Mr. Chiwonde. Can we have Mr. Chiwonde on screen from the UK?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, perfect. Yes, perfect. I have a question for you. I know actually we have integrated KAI from the invention. How is KAI applying artificial intelligence to solve real world challenges? For example, in Uganda or West Africa, I've also seen some of the work in the UK. So how are you using artificial intelligence to solve real world challenges? Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks very much for that question, Arafat. I am Patrick Kironde, and I am the CTO of KAI, but I'm also an AI researcher currently working on deep learning models and LLMs. So, give me a second. So back to your question. First of all, one thing that's been answered. What is AI actually? I've been listening to various speakers that have talked about AI. there's a lot of misconception about what we can and can't do. So research, I'm always working with people, powerful models, what they can do inside. For me, AI is about computer systems that human intelligence. They smart humans, not quite yet, but they're on the way to being even smarter humans. And we can make a lot of arguments around that. AI is very broad to me. So many facets to AI. I mean, you can sort of think of it from ethics and social impact. We talk about AI transparent, it's going to take our jobs, it's secure, all sorts of different questions for you reason privacy. But for me, what I want to focus on really is around what we call deep learning and generative AI, or gen models, which everyone knows as ChatGPT, which is the most popular, famous, generative AI. But the key takeaway is AI is very, very broad. There's computer vision, there is robotics, driverless cars, all that kind of thing. But the important thing is that generative AI, models like ChatGPT, have been breakthroughs over the last few years. And that's why you can give AI 7 years, 8 years. But trust me, it's been the last 3 years about AI. We build AI agents, smart AI agents for businesses, achieve goals. If we partner with your clinic, and we provide them with an AI agent that's able to answer all sorts of questions around the sort of service they provide. For example, I can screenshot the AI can answer questions around doctor availability, all sorts of stuff. And obviously it's multilingual. So what we're doing there really is we're getting models like GPT, but it's customized for a particular business. GPT is a very general. For us to be able to customize those platforms for a particular business. So, for example, this is applicable to any organization that is Uganda, Africa, for helping them prepare things like customer service. So the world has moved from search engines, right? Where you go to Google and ask a question. Now we're in an era of answer engines, where the ask the AI and it gives you an answer. And to me, that's going to be the future. And I think in the future, everybody has to have their own personal AI. They all have their own personal AI. So, Care specializing in AI agents, and we're doing stuff in Uganda where we're giving our AI agents away for free to NGOs. I'm a really, really big proponent of making sure that Africa gets we're not behind this whole AI regulation. And I'll leave it there for now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Raji, for the introduction as well of artificial intelligence and also the governance aspect of artificial intelligence. Time bound, I'll rush to Ms. May. Ms. May, hello. I have a question for you. You've been doing great work in Kenya, Africa. So a question I have for you, May, is tell us about you're the director, you're the director of the Global Health Innovations, and it is driving innovation to newborn healthcare. I'm going to combine my two questions so that we can wrap it up faster. When you what you do at DHI, then you can tell us how do you think AI that you have just introduced, how do you think it could play a role to improve the maternal and newborn care in Africa? VIDIHSA available? Okay. When he's a speaker, I have to dive into his career. As a software engineer, he's a role model. So now the question about for you, Edson, with the extensive work in AI and innovation, probably and Turing is good, really. What you said is true. What challenges and opportunities do you think you see applying AI in predictive analytics? First of all, I saw your senior in analytics. What is it, and how can we use that in our health sector in Uganda?
Thank you so much for that. It's really interesting, and I'll mention only one challenge, and then I'll expand about it. The biggest challenge we have resolves around data. That is the topmost challenge. Now, what we're doing today, because, for example, if you read an article by the UNDP of 2024 last year that talks about 28% of the health centers we have in the remote places have the I'll say internet, 60,000. That is ridiculous, because what we're doing, we're getting a Tesla in a village that does not have roads. Beautiful technology, but it doesn't have a path, you know? And the other thing we're doing is we're trying to fight the storms with only 50% visibility of the skies. That is totally ridiculous. How can we localize data? How can we use our own data? The reason why I'm saying this is I've worked on very many projects, and one of the projects I worked on sponsored by the GIZ and the previous year 2023. It is one of the biggest projects they are having at Makere AI Lab there. One time I went there and someone was describing the project where I was a senior data scientist. We did a lot of work locally, but then later we discovered that the models we're using to train were actually worked on from the global north. They cannot work for us. So we had to do a lot to collect the local data itself to reduce the bias. You get what I'm trying to say? And this is what has been happening with all the innovation that people have been trying to do. Now, I'm looking at how can we use data to create innovations that can transform the health sector, and include the analytics, as I'm going to speak about it. We have a lot of technologies, and we can defend a lot of reactions that may come from the health practitioners. For example, they may say an issue of trust. They may speak about privacy. We have a lot of technology spaces. Someone mentioned about the blockchain technology. I was reading a small brochure about the clinic, and I was saying that you can book a consultation with the doctor, and you're able to talk. Are you keeping the record of that particular video, or you're not keeping that particular video? And if you're keeping it, who is keeping the video? How secure is that video? Can anyone else access the video? You get what I'm saying? So if you told me that we are running on a blockchain architecture or system, then you're actually bringing a bit of confidence, because it has a lot of advantages, transparency, confidentiality, and so on. I'm imagining a system where if a patient, for example, left
IHK today, after taking medication, to black people how can we build such a system that provides us the insights from the data and it doesn't compromise the privacy for the patients? Now, how can the health sector benefit from data analytics as the question has come around? Now, if you look at data analytics is wide. How many different types? And from the types, that's where we see the different benefits. For example, this is the question of what has happened. Now, if you're a doctor and you're able to figure out what has happened without doing a lot, then it's making, there's efficiency there. I've been in a hospital at Mulaba Hospital where a doctor has a chunk of books below him, and he pulls them out and then starts to open to figure out, as he listens to the symptoms that you're speaking about. Now, we are having that full book as a dictionary within the AI itself, and it's able to maneuver all different pieces and then give you the, an optimized response. Basically, the definition of analytics is simply synthesizing knowledge from information. That is the simplest thing I can do. And if you look at the reason why you go to schools and go and study, you're going to realize that you have to go over those different pillars until you reach the pillar of intelligence where you can actually create. Now, the whole process of synthesizing, the result of synthesis is basically knowledge. Now, that's when you understand what is happening to this particular patient. Now, that translation of knowledge is what gives you the ability to create an innovation itself, because innovation comes from knowledge, and that's why people do research. Now, just simply descriptive. It's a lot of power. And you can get this from business around big data. The second one is diagnostic analytics, and this one is one of the recent ones. The descriptive is basically hindsight, but the diagnostic is an insight because it answers the question of why did it happen? And you need to understand the why. Now, another insight one, which is a type of analytics, is the predictive analytics, which answers what could happen from statistical models. What could happen? And the last one, which is a foresight, which is a type of analytics, is basically the prescriptive analytics, which answers what should we do. And this is where we see a lot of optimization and a lot of simulations, and this is where creation is happening. You get what I'm saying? And that's where the innovation itself is happening. Africa, we are proud, but we are not showing a lot of pride of what we've created. If you to go to is it called the city scans from Africa? If you look at blood transfusion, still from Africa, the first concept was from Africa. However, if I don't tell you this, you're going to think that it came from the US or something else. Do edit Google, you're going to be surprised. So we have a lot of skill and knowledge that we can basically bring up front, work together with the health practitioners, and be able to help so that we don't settle. No matter how much you're going to fight AI, you will not win. It will continue to move. How long will it take TikTok to pick up something? How about reactive pick up very fast? How about ChatGPT? So fast. So we have so many technologies. When we talk about federated learning, they may argue that, okay, we want to give you data. There was a time I was working on a program to do with HIV, and but I the data is technology, the data. However, I was looking at how can I train models working where I don't have to take your data back. Basically, what I receive are insights from this data, like parameters, like the weight. That's what I adjust.
So I was looking at, I want to develop a certain system whereby all hospitals, we train data from their own servers, so we can train them to VIDIHSA, and we benefit from the on-device insights or analytics, I may say. So we have a lot of ideas on how we can do this without compromising. However, we need to work together because this is the only way we're going to move forward. Trust me, if we had the entire, let's say if we had the entire health centers in the country pushing basically insights from the data being trained from their own premises, and we make a centralized or decentralized servers that are training models on their own data, Africa would just be another something that people can't even describe.
Thank you, Edison. This data is a trend right now, and with this kind of data that you described, how we could use that, you can actually predict diseases, you can predict different affecting our healthcare system in Uganda. Thank you so much, Edison. I appreciate it. Dr. Hiro, you previously told us applications we could adopt like in Uganda in AI to make sure that we go forward. But then let's talk about how do we position ourselves to adopt such innovations you've told us. Do we empower people like Michael to teach AI and machine learning? How do we set ourselves, push ourselves, make sure that we can now ready to adopt the innovations you've told us?
Thank you very much. So, I can share two anecdotes. First, basically, I have the honor to have many opportunities to give a presentation in Japan to many policymakers like parliamentary members or some president of listed companies. And each time I show one picture from Uganda, which is the world's largest incubator for newborn children in Rwanda Hospital. I was amazed by the machine. So in this incubator, we can put 10 newborn babies and monitor heart rate or temperature simultaneously. And it's quite rare to see this kind of new technology actually deployed in Japan, because when I showed that picture to the pediatrician in Japan, he said this technology is impressive, but some parents in Japan might say, please do not put other children on top of my child. So this kind of things can be happen often in developed countries. So there are a lot of challenges, which is, for me, which is quite meaningless, but this kind of things can hinder us from employing new innovation in developed countries. In contrast, in Uganda, I think there was an urgency to how to support a lot of newborn babies in rural hospitals, and that's why they integrated these kind of new technologies in actual context. So I think there are a lot of possibilities to transforming this kind of urgency into employing new technologies, including AI. And the second point is that, so last year, I had an opportunity to work with Ugandan IT developing country with the support of Ministry of ICT here and the VIDIHSA from Japan. So they provided subsidy to outsource software development project from my company in Japan, Vitendo, to local company. After the end of the project, I was interviewed by Ministry of ICT asking me that what was the largest challenge in that collaboration. I answered that the microphone quality in Uganda side. So sometimes we had a remote meeting and the microphone quality was not so good here, so it was quite difficult to communicate in real time sometimes. But this means there were no other challenges in working simultaneously with Japanese company opportunity to utilize this chance to develop and catch up with the latest AI technology. I think Uganda is well positioned to do this kind of outsourced project because of the number of English-speaking population. Also, Japanese company or other Asian companies are looking forward to having the opportunity to expand their business in the area in which a lot of people are starting new businesses. So I think if Uganda can be positioned as an entry point of African market for IT companies in Japan or other countries, there are a lot of opportunity or a lot of chance to catch up with latest AI technologies. But lastly, I want to say, as I said, infrastructure is very important. So most Japanese companies want to make sure Ugandan companies are capable of developing new AI technology, which demands large-scale computing technology. So if we can build large-scale computing technology, we provide these technologies for startup companies, there are good return opportunities for speaking to coming up with technologies in developing countries.
Thank you, Dr. I think two very big points. One was collaboration. Uganda has begun collaboration with the countries and for how they are competing in the solution. Two is the infrastructure that needs to be cooperation that we need to be
You're understanding of the 1% of the critical mass of our population. But if you're going to scale it out, for something to 20 people, they've built an amazing platform where you use mobile ultrasound scan. But they've built an interesting model, what they're calling the franchise model. So the hospitals no longer have to buy the kit, but for every scan, you buy, it's like pay per use. So as you use, they are recovering their cost. As you use, they are recovering their cost. As you use, they are recovering their cost. So these things are beginning to come in place. These things are beginning to generate data. What I challenge is that this data is then siloed. So if I was to look at the national perspective, we need to have direction on how do we collect this national data. Because if I'm going to build data models for a national perspective, I need to be able to have data that is representative. The second thing is where we start from. And I like what you mentioned. We can start when, and I'll end with this story. When COVID came, we went offline. I mean, we went on. We used to say at Refactory, we can't train you. I think that spoke about you started online. Yes. So they started online. We used to be physically present when we can't for you. COVID came. And then we realized that we don't want to salary. Because our work was based on numbers. So what did we do? We started with Zoom. It was the most frustrating experience. Because you're talking to people you can't see looking to yourself. That you have to do a lot of learning on how to deliver classes online. A lot of learning. The learners didn't have an idea, we also didn't have an idea.
was there. So he was one of the culprits who got the tough one. But then when COVID ended and we started going back, I remember him, I was in that class that I was saying, I think we want to come back. Because the market doesn't make business sense. It cost me 20,000 to come to study, just transport without lunch. It's even more expensive than the tuition I'm paying. Why should I come here every day? I've never gone back physical. And so thank you for being very honest. Because I would spend 20,000 every single day to come to class. By the time I finish 6 months, for a program I paid 1 million, I would have spent over 3 million in transport. Does it make sense? He said, what are we suffering with? What are we trying to prove? So we abandoned. But guess what? Look at that physical way to do this. But then because we are working 1 day a week in office, 4 days out of office, we'll find over 400 missed calls, over 400 missed opportunities. With messages, people complain. So we find an entity that does agents. So we implement an agent into our website. Our calls dropped by 80%. So I don't look at it as replacing the person. I look at it from an efficiency perspective. Guess what? Our comms and marketing team, now we look at the data of the people that have engaged the chat agent on the website, and they can now zero on with the one who is about to close the application. And we can now directly close the application faster than when they have to make through his calls. So in this use case for AI that we can quickly tap into, and I would say WhatsApp chat agents are super helpful. I can say website chatbot, but you need to constantly update. And then finally, I would say we have to be intentional. Because a lot of people are using these agents, but they're not checking that data on a regular. It's like you think that is solving. But when people ask questions and nobody responds, because remember that we train that agent. There are certain responses it doesn't have. Because you've not thought about that response also. So it will have to give some response, but the person will expect enough response. If you don't have somebody who's looking at it and constantly tuning it, then it can also be disaster.
Thank you so much, Michael. You touched things about me. One was that first question to try to know how you have that good memory. I wasn't always that issue. We talk about Kanungu, that's my own district, and I'm working with one of my colleagues to make sure we digitize our reports. Thank you. Last but not least, Mr. in a few minutes. You created AI, you know how AI right now is trending and how it is going. Just throw for me a stone in the next 5 or 10 years. How will AI look like, especially in the mental health sector and also other sectors? Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Arafat. Hopefully everyone can hear me okay?
Yes, please.
Yes. So what does AI look like in the health sector in Africa? Well, first of all, we cannot get left behind. Western governments are spending billions. I believe UK $1 billion has been put towards AI. So AI is here. And we absolutely cannot get left behind. Just to give you an idea of, I'm not going to focus on the UK where I'm based. But the same things are also transferable to Africa to some people in Canada. So here in the UK, 1 in 4 doctors are using AI. And this was a survey done by the General Medical Council. 52% of doctors are optimistic about the use of AI in healthcare. And I want to expand a bit more, how are they using AI? Right. A survey was recently done, 92% of UK university students use AI as part of their work. 90%. So AI is also university, they now use ChatGPT, same level the library, and now it's becoming part of students' lifestyle. Interestingly, Microsoft, 30% of the code is now written by AI. So what I was thinking here is that AI is here and it's actually the future, and companies are taking advantage of it. Healthcare also needs to tap into that, and also in regards to Africa. So why do we need AI in African healthcare? We face so many challenges. Language barriers, also why we need AI. But before I proceed about talking about how great AI is, there is a couple of things that we need to sort of address. And be cautious around ethical, legal, social considerations. So, this is not training data. You gotta work about efficacy, accountability. If AI is something wrong, who is to blame? Is it AI? Is it so the legal system is not trying to figure these things out. Who's accountable for AI uncapable? Start prosecuting against someone. So everything uncovered in their own way. Obviously AI models can be biased. Some people it's always learning from data. What I mean by bias, I remember a few years back, AI models would classify black people as monkeys, right? Not because they've been trained on certain data. So they do learn with biases because fundamentally learning from data. And also with regulations. I believe Uganda will be still working on an AI strategy which could be released this year. We need framework and some sort of strategy to control this data. And without a doubt, we cannot depend on Western countries to regulate our AI models. We have models. Western countries are interested. So how about doctors? I'm going to kind of focus more on doctors and health practitioners. How are they using AI in the UK? Things fall, it kind of falls into three categories. Diagnostics and decision support systems, using AI for efficient systems, and also how are they using it with generative models. So here in the UK, you can use AI for things like identifying medical conditions. They're really, really good at things like image recognition, cancer cells. One of my fellow researchers works on AI models that can sort of like identify cancer cells and all that kind of stuff. And they've got really, really good, I think 90% accuracy. It's really crazy how great they've really got. Also, we can use them for predicting risk. If you feed in a lot of data, AI models are really good at learning patterns and being able to predict if someone's going to have some sort of like alignment down the line. AI is being used here for triaging. So when patients being interested or patients has a question, AI is being heavily used as triaging so that the right doctor gets to see the right patient. For me, the AI affecting Africa and the health sector is about creating AI is all about automation, trying to remove the human from the loop so that the computer takes care of that and effectively, hopefully, be more efficient and more effective. So you can use AI system for things like transcribing doctor's notes. You can imagine if you have like a phone, it can listen to the conversation between the doctor and the patient, and can transcribe those notes and save them for you. That's very popular here at the moment. We can also use it for things like predicting, like, patients missing appointments, all sorts of forecasting. The important thing is if you have the data, you can then train your AI model to predict something in the future, right? We can use it for things like registering users, where you have AI agents that help you register a user. One of our clients is Aslan, and they're like a ferry company in Tanzania. So we built an AI agent that makes bookings for them on the ferries, right? The most popular area where doctors and practitioners are using AI is more these generative systems that contain like things like ChatGPT, right? ChatGPT is actually a very general knowledge AI model. So the future is all about actually specialized models, right? So in the NHS, they do have access to specialized ChatGPT models that have been trained on healthcare. So as a doctor, do you want to ask ChatGPT a question about a patient? Probably not, because it's very, very general knowledge. But they have developed these more focused models that understand more about healthcare data. And you can imagine, like in Uganda, the Ministry of Health, perhaps they can train a model that understands more about the local challenges that we have, malaria, and sort of like the local diseases, right? Also, doctors are using AI for drafting patient notes, letters, effective purposes. They're using AI for generating education, relating notes from one language to the other, because obviously they become quite multicultural. So doctors are kind of finding ways where AI is a companion for their work. So to me, the future AI in the health sector, AI is a tool. It's there to augment the work, not to replace doctors and health practitioners. We're not quite there, AI replacing doctors and stuff. Funny enough, AI is replacing software engineers, right? And you'd have thought, oh gosh, how can AI write better code than software engineers? But the reality is they actually do write better code. So the roles of junior engineers is all disappearing. Microsoft laid off thousands of staff because now they're using AI models to write code and stuff. So AI is a powerful tool that you absolutely have to tap into. I'm sure students are using AI. You'd be hard pressed to find a student that uses AI to do their coursework or help them do their coursework. Will doctors ever be replaced by AI? I think someone asked me this question. No, not quite. AI is there to help, just like doctor uses scales and thermometers and stethoscopes and all sorts of tools to help them achieve their goal. So certainly we can focus more on what I call, top of the license work, interacting more with the humans than that. So for Africa in particular, we absolutely have to tap into AI. We need to find use cases where AI fits in. It's not a tool that does everything, but without a doubt, organizations here in the UK are finding uses of infusing AI as part of their workflow. One of the biggest things that we face is what I call cultural work for transformation. When I approached AI, you get a lot of resistance because people are kind of worried about AI. Is it going to take my job? All sorts of questions, job security, which are very real. I mean, you could ignore them effectively. Some of us come along and build a platform, whatever, a product that, professionally says, your job will be in jeopardy. So I'm sorry to start on this one in a second. So we do have a random joke in software engineering. Is AI job? No. What's going to happen is that you can take your job. So you've got to have that toolkit as part of your tool set as a practitioner. And as around that, because I'm running out of time, as KAI, we're looking to partner with NGOs and health institutions, as we've done with Mobile Clinic, where we're working with a smart AI system. We're also working with another health organization there, where we actually embed AI in WhatsApp. Because these AI models can actually be embedded in the way people can see AI is through ChatGPT and a web interface. But no, you can embed these AI agents in things like WhatsApp, in phones, in applications, in all sorts. So I'll leave it there for giving you insight into why we absolutely cannot be left behind in this AI revolution in Africa. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mbaji, for that. There was Team No AI. Ease your mind about applying health, in health. This concludes our panel. I have a small question that will take about 30 seconds for each speaker. I'll begin with the Mbaji. What is young innovators who are building solutions in Africa? So within a few seconds, what advice do you think would give young innovators who are aspiring to create solutions? Some of us have ideas, but they die in our heads. What do you think we could do to make sure that innovations to work? I can't hear you. Are you muted? Mr. Are you muted? Can you unmute him?
Yes, I can hear you now. You had a bit of asking that question, so repeat it.
My question was, being that I have here innovators on my panel, what advice would you give to young innovators who want to produce solutions for Uganda and Africa? Because most of us young people have ideas in our head, but it gets challenging to put the ideas to action plans. What advice do you have to young innovators?
Yeah, the main breakthroughs in AI are all about these generative models like ChatGPT, right? But the big American UK, first of all, UK hasn't got like an LLM model, which is quite shocking. So the big American companies like AI and Anthropic had a bit of a stranglehold on these really smart models. So what we're leading to